You on?
Ready.
Good morning, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for August the 20th, 2019. I'm John Hutchings, Chair of the Board, and to my left is
Gary Edwards.
Vicki Larkin, Commissioner Edwards' office.
Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
And Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
and to my right,
Thomasina Cooper, Assistant Thurston County Commissioner, Time Minister.
La Bonita Bomar, Clerk of the Board.
and if you can't hear us at home, because they're not all mic'd up, ask me, I'll let you know.
Robin Ford, Executive Assistant. Megan Porter, Public Information.
So we're going to work with this agenda, and we're going to start with reviewing the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for next Tuesday, August the 27th, 2019. And we'll call the meeting to order. We'll call the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m.
That is correct,
Because it's going to
Commissioner.
be in Yelm at Yelm Middle School
Yes.
in the Commons area. So again, next week, the 27th, the BoCC meeting is 5:30 p.m. in Yelm at Yelm Middle School. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Vice Chair Edwards, and then we'll do the approval of the agenda and the minutes for August 13th. Then we move right into presentations, and the first one is Emergency Services.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Before I go into the details, just for the viewing public, the board meeting you will have next week on the Yale Middle School at 5:30 in the afternoon is an attempt by the Board of County Commissioners to reach out to the community. You held a similar meeting in the Rochester area. This is your second offsite meeting, and hopefully the public has the opportunity to come and visit with you during the meeting. And we also going to be scheduling a third offsite meeting later in the year. And the intent is to have at least, I believe, 3 offsite meetings a year. And this is the new approach the board has taken to reach out to the community.
Okay?
So with that in mind, for your consideration is for you to proclaim September 2019 as the National Preparedness Month in Thurston County. There is a proclamation for your consideration, and Kurt Harden, the Emergency Services Director, is here to answer any questions related to this proclamation.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions. No questions. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Kurt, for being here. Then we have Emergency Services again.
Yeah, so the next few items, and again, this is an attempt to give additional information about some of the departments that we have here in the county, taking the opportunity there is an offsite meeting. So the first presentation is by the Emergency Services Director, Kurt Harden, and he will be given an overview of Medic 1 in emergency management. And this is related to the proclamation as September as the National Preparedness Month. And again, Kurt will spend 10 minutes talking about those 2 areas of his department, and certainly will be open for any questions.
Okay. Very nice. Any
Nope.
questions?
No.
Okay. And I need to mention, before we get too much further, and I'll mention it again, that since next Tuesday we're having a meeting at 5:30 in Yelm, this afternoon, because there was nothing on the agenda, there is no meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, La. Next is Community Planning and Economic Development.
The same, Josh Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, will take 10 minutes to give a presentation, and he will give an overview of the different programs and projects his department is currently having on the work plan. And again, it's just no items in particular, it's just an informational presentation.
Okay. Nope. Okay. Next is Public Works, and I love the title, the description of this presentation.
Likewise, Public Works has taken this opportunity to explain to the public as to how and why we chip seal some of the roads here in the county. And I think this is very timely, considering this is the summer season. There's a lot of chip seal activities have going around the county as well as within the cities. this may be a good opportunity to hear a little more the technical background as to what the chip seal activities are conducted on some of the roads. They appears to be in good condition, but that will be probably the gist of the presentation.
Just between my house and here this morning, there was like 5 different sections, chip seal in progress. So why do we chip seal perfectly good roads?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. You probably know the answer to that, don't you?
I think it might be to keep them good.
Yeah. And for safety, yeah. Any questions? I'm seeing that? Nope. Okay. Public Health Social Services, Teen Health in Thurston County.
Yeah, and this is, and again, the Public Health Social Services Department is going to give a presentation of 10 minutes, and Marianne O'Gara will give a presentation on the teen health issues related to the protective factors and data that are relevant to Thurston County as an overall. And again, this is keen on the young community. No item in particular, it's just an overview. And public health has taken this opportunity to narrow down on the specific message.
All right, anything? She is one smart cookie. I tell her, epidemiologist, very smart lady. And when she presents something, it's captivating. It really is. So look forward to that. Then we have an opportunity for the public to address the board.
Well, I sure hope that the community of Yelm will take the opportunity to come and address the board and perhaps many items they see.
I'm sure they will.
Look forward to it.
Because we're doing this meeting in the Commons at the middle school, but it might end up in their splash park or something. Who knows?
No.
County manager update.
I really don't have any follow-up related to the public testimony you have received. Nothing is pending, at least on my to-do list. And if there's anything that comes up between now and the meeting, I will certainly highlight it during that meeting.
Okay. Then we move to agenda item number 3, the consent items A through D, and the first one's the assessor. And this morning, Assessor Stephen Drew took me on a tour of the assessor's office from beginning to end. And I can't believe that I haven't been in there yet, but it's very interesting, and meeting a lot of the people that work there.
Oh, that's good.
Apparently we have quite a few people from Lewis County, and that's good. They've lost their accent already. So go ahead, 3A is the assessor.
Yeah, on the same vein, I think the assessor has taken a great approach in not just hiring qualified employees, but also as a way to retain employees, and also looks for ways to create efficiencies within his business. So this particular request is really aligned to that approach. And for your consideration is to reclassify a commercial property appraisal to an appraisal supervisor. And this will help maintain the critical deadlines the office faces on a periodic basis, and also will be part of the appeals team that also we have seen a lot of appeals going to related to their assessment. The impact on the budget of this classification, the salary will go from $6,390 to $7,044 per month. That will be a $654 increase, or 10% increase on a monthly basis. And again, just a clarification, I'm just giving you the maximum impact. This may not necessarily materialize after this reclassification is in place, but it's just the maximum impact of this item for you.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards?
No.
Okay.
I would add,
Yes.
this is only one piece. You've seen many reclassifications from the assessor. He has an overall plan for his office, and he's worked with both HR and myself. Once all the pieces are in place, the budget overall balances. So he's not going to, even if this particular position gets a raise, another position was going down, and it all balances out. So he's done a very nice job of planning all of
Oh,
this.
good. He explains a lot of the nuances, several of the nuances in regards to not only the budget, but the positions themselves and movement, so it makes more sense, it makes logical sense.
If you see it overall, you're seeing them one or two positions at a time, but when you see the entire plan, it all works out quite nicely.
Yeah, well, that was valuable this morning, coming in. All right, 3B, Commissioners, work session summaries.
Yeah, for your consideration to approve the work session summaries from January 2nd, 2018, January 16, March 20, April 3rd, May 1st, May 22nd, and June 2nd, and June 26th of 2019.
Just clean up.
Yeah.
3-0? No. 3C, District Court.
In the district court, district is also for your consideration is reclassifying a vacant position. Similar to the assessor's office, district court is going through the process of assessing the current positions and make appropriate realignments to meet the business needs. In this particular case, there is a need for a person who trains all the court assistants that provide services, because the law changes, as you know, on a yearly basis, and needs somebody who can probably focus on the different changes. And as a result, this individual will provide the training, adequate training and supervisory to all the court assistants. This is really what the intent of this reclassification, and again, is to take a vacant court assistant position and classify it to court coordinator. The impact on the budget in the budget is $4,541 a month to $5,257 a month. That will be a $716 or 16% increase on the monthly basis. And they are not planning to ask for a budget request. As a result
They're
of
not.
this, they will be absorbing this.
Okay. Commissioner?
No.
Good. Moving on to 3D, the financial services, the voucher list, and we'll get a chance to review that this week. Department items, agenda item number 4, the Sheriff's Department contract for part-time school resource officer in Rochester.
Yeah, this is a renewal of the existing contract. The Sheriff's Office provides services to the Rochester School District for resource officers on the different schools. This has been, I believe, for a couple of years, a contract. So for your considerations to renew the contract for the upcoming school year 2019 and 2020. There's a part-time position and has a cost of $60,000. Some of the resource officers, they provide those services to the school district. They do that on an overtime basis, so they don't take away from the daily duties, and that is reflected on the contract.
Okay. And that has not changed.
I thought I heard you say something about it cost $60,000.
Yeah, the contract.
But it's not going to
is-
cost us
No,
anything,
the
right?
cost of the services to the school district is
Right.
$60,000.
So, okay.
Yeah.
No impact to our
No
budget.
impact, no. The
Thank
school
you.
district compensates for those services.
Okay. 4B, contract for part-time school resource officers, Rainier.
Similar to the previous item, Commissioners, this is to provide this resource officer duties to their within the city of Rainier and the schools within. And this contract is for $40,000. And again, the city of Rainier will compensate the sheriff's office for those services up to the amount of $40,000.
Anything, Commissioner?
No.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, Public Health Social Services, Pierce County South Sound Shellfish Recovery Agreement.
Yeah, this item for your consideration, Commissioners, is an amendment to an existing contract that you already approved. And this contract is related to the Pierce County Planning and Public Works subrecipient funds work to conduct pollution identification and the correction work for Thurston County shellfish protection. So this amendment will increase the budget by $193,550 to $303,150. That is a compensation that Pierce County provides to Thurston County to provide those services. Also within one of the key elements of this additional work will include 111,000 or thereabouts for task number 2, which is the pollution correction facilitation and enforcement. Additional funding will allow public health and social services to work with community members to address water pollution problems associated with the Dobbs Creek Camping Club, including the evaluation of wastewater treatment alternatives, the preliminary system design, and assistance as to how we can resolve this issue. So this is really going to give the enough revenue to start addressing and looking for alternatives. I believe the commission is well aware of the Dobbs Creek and this campground. So, but Art Story is here to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Edwards,
I do.
would you like Art to come to the table?
Well, I guess I need an answer on something. I just have a question here.
Good morning, Art.
Maybe the county manager might be able to answer this, but I see in here into an agreement with Thurston Conservation District as required. What is that going to entail?
This is a three-party agreement that we have, and is the same with the Pierce County, Thurston County, and the Thurston Conservation District. Go ahead.
Yeah, so good morning. I'm Art Story with Environmental Health. And part of this, as Ramiro indicated, this is a kind of a complex agreement in that the National Estuary Program is providing funds to deal with South Puget Sound pollution issues, and we have an agreement with Pierce County. They're kind of the original fund receiver, and we're a sub-recipient to receive funds to deal with Dobbs Creek. And as part of this, one of the issues that we're anticipating is agricultural practices that need improvement. And so what this funding would allow is for the Conservation District to work with property owners to implement best management practices to address agricultural pollution. And so the funding comes again through this agreement. There's not any real obligation to the county other than providing the contractual services. It's again just we're passing the funds through to the Conservation District because of the way that they're made available to us. So,
Are we going to be doing water testing as part of this process, and this will cover that?
Yes.
So we can positively identify where the problems are coming from?
yes, and that's what we're doing. And as you know, when we've had discussions in the past, we want to, before we ask people to make corrections or take action, we want to be absolutely certain that we're focusing on the right thing. So that's part of this program, is to continue to do the inventory work and to do the water quality analysis so we can have confidence in whatever recommendations or actions that we're taking or that we're asking property owners to take.
And the outcome from this probably is going to be more shellfish production area in the saltwater.
Right, so the intent of this is to reopen some areas that have closed recently within Henderson Inlet. As you know, we've had a lot of success over the years, but in the past 2 years, there's been a downgrade of 30 acres in Henderson Inlet, and so this is one of the things that we believe will help reopen those areas. Dobbs Creek and Fleming Creek have been identified as significant pollution sources, and so we're spending a lot of time and effort trying to identify the pollution sources and correct them, and work with the property owners to correct them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anything, Constantine? Nope. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
You're welcome. Thank you, Art. Item number 6, Emergency Services Home Elevation Project Agreement.
You may recall, Commissioners, you approved a similar agreement, I will say probably a month ago. This is just another structure that needs to be elevated out of the floodplain. This is related to the 2015 Hazard Mitigation Grant. In this particular case, is an agreement with Ms. Iris Mengel, I believe that's how it's pronounced, for $96,717.71. This property is located in 18629 Southeast Old Camp Lane in Yale, Washington. There is a local share associated with this particular grant, and the property owner is required to provide the share of this project. So the county doesn't have any financial obligation to this project other than just helping manage this grant to elevate the structure. And I believe this is the last one of the structures are going to be elevating as a result of the 2015 grant. and I believe has a sunset date coming up of the grant, I believe by the end of the year. So
Do you know how many we've had?
I believe we
Do you
have
recall?
3, right? Two, thank you.
2 of them? So this is the third or this is the second?
The second.
End of the second, okay. Commissioner?
No, sounds good.
Okay. Agenda item number 6. Oh, we just did that. Number 7, county manager, appointment of a new member of the Fair Board, to the Fair Board.
Yes, for your consideration, Commissioner. Usually this item is in your consent agenda, an appointment for a vacant position on boards and commissions. In this particular case, we would like to have a specific item for you to welcome Ms. Kia Ramirez. You had been considering appointing her as the vacant youth at large for position in the Thurston County Fair Board. I think we had a conversation with Ms. Ramirez. She's willing to come, have a conversation with the board, and at the same time, it will give you the opportunity to get to know her. And I don't think she's going to be able to bring her goat, but certainly she will be available to answer any questions related to her contributions to the Fair Board.
And she is a South County resident out there.
That is
around Yelm,
correct.
right?
And that is, I think we just saw an opportunity having the meeting in Yelm. She lives within the area, and I think it's a good item to consider.
Can't bring her goat. Okay. All right. That takes us to 7B, setting a public hearing for the Thurston Conservation District.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration, this item is to set up public hearing for September 24, 2019 at 5:30 in this room for you to hear public testimony related to the rates and charges for the Thurston Conservation District. As you may recall, the Thurston Conservation District is partially funded by the rates and charges, which is assessed to the citizens within the defined district boundaries of the district, which was established in 1947. There is a lot of some exceptions in there. Within the districts is not all Thurston County, so those boundaries are a little bit old, and again, back in 1947. The Board of Supervisors conducted a public hearing, and they already passed a resolution, which you had I believe, a briefing maybe 4 weeks ago, where they formally submitted for your consideration the renewal of the rates and charges. Which they lapse December 31st, 2019. So their recommendation for this board, from the Board of Supervisors, including for you to consider having implementing the rates and charges for 5 years. So this item is going to a public hearing, including the recommendation by the Board of Supervisors. This does not mean that the board has to approve on that. It's just to set the stage for the public to provide you public testimony. After that, we will schedule a follow-up meeting based on the public testimony that you receive. And at that point, I will ask the board for direction as to how you would like to structure the rates and charges for 2020 and perhaps beyond for the Thurston Conservation District.
Okay, so again, that's a Tuesday, September 24th at 5:30 p.m.
Right
here
here.
in this room.
Right.
The public hearing, okay. Commissioner?
Nope, got it.
Got it, thank you. Then we go into the batting all cleanup afterwards at the end of that agenda, and that adjourns that agenda for that meeting. Next, we're moving on to proclamations and awards.
Good morning again. La Bonita Bomar, Clerk of the Board. Under proclamation, I have one for September. And what's in your packet is the final draft for the September 11th National Day of Service and Remembrance. We've done this in previous years, and it's here for you to review and make any additional corrections that you would like to see before the 27th when it will be presented. Excuse me, not the 27th, September 9th board meeting.
Okay.
I have worked with Kurt Harden, Director for Emergency Services, and he will be inviting, again, Chief Brooks and Sheriff Snaza, who was here last year, and maybe a few others to
Okay.
attend the meeting. That's that's all I have for proclamations.
Commissioner, anything on that?
No?
Anything on that? Tom? I have a question. The proclamation I'm looking at, is it exactly the same word for word from last year?
It is, and I have gone online to see if there was anything different being presented. Vicki Larkin and I talked about that yesterday, and I didn't find anything in the actual language for the resolution to change.
Okay.
Excuse me, proclamation.
And
to
I read it.
change.
Have you had a chance to go through it? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
Advisory boards.
boards, yeah.
Pardon me?
As advisory boards, go ahead, thank you.
I do not have anything to add to advisory boards. No new applications have been received. An email has gone out to the Chamber of Commerce and the Legal Society Group to let them know about the vacancy that we have for a business representative and a legal representative for the Citizen Commission on Salaries for Elected Officials. It has been confirmed that they received my email and application for our boards and commissions, but I haven't had any response from citizens.
So Ms. Ramirez is going to be the youth, represent youth on the Fair Board. And when I look at it, it says 6 vacancies, and at the end it says 5 member
Right.
at
and that
large.
will-
Does that make it 4 now?
Yes.
Okay. Got it, okay. Anything, sir?
No?
Ma'am? Thank you, Law.
Thank you.
PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. I have just a few updates for you, as you guys have already talked about, but next Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. at the Yelm Middle School Commons at 402 West Yelm Avenue in Yelm is the Board of Commissioners meeting. We've put out a news release about it, social media posts, talked about it at STEADY, which is the South Thurston Economic Development Initiative, and then also posted some flyers in Yelm. So we're hoping that we're getting the word out enough that we're going to get some attendees at that meeting. There will be no live streaming of next Monday's special agenda setting for the 8/27 meeting because there's a system reboot over the weekend and it will not be rebooted in time that morning. So we will be filming it. TC Media will be coming in with a camera and some microphones and we'll be filming it. So it will be available either later that week or early the following week. So we will be recording it, just won't be live streamed that day. We expect it to be back online by the agenda setting the following morning. But if it's not for whatever reason, we'll put a notice out through social media and then also have them coming in with a camera and microphone and making sure that that gets recorded at least. The first 2 episodes of Commissioner Hutchings' Civility 3-part series have been released. The 3rd one is going out this Friday. They're well received, so good job on that.
Nice to hear that, thank you.
Yeah, they're very well received, especially the first one. A lot of
That was
people.
the middle school kids?
With the middle school kids, yep, people really were enjoying that. Yesterday, Commissioner Edwards filmed his Thurston County Connection. It'll be released in early September. It's on Medic One and TCOM, so that'll be a good one. Expect that early September. And then, as I was listening to Law, I remember that one of the aspects of our communications plan was to develop an outreach plan around boards and commission vacancies. So in the coming months, I'm going to be working with Law to get an outreach plan together so that we can get the word out a bit more about the vacancies that we're having in our boards and commissions and try and get those vacancies filled.
Questions?
Do you have any questions for me, or?
I do. Do you have one?
No.
The BoCC meeting in Yelm at the middle school, is that live streamed?
They are checking that this week to make sure that they're going to be able to live stream it, but I suspect it'll be similar to what we did in Rochester, and that yes, it should be live streamed. If it's not, for
We'll record it.
whatever reason, it will definitely be recorded.
Is that because they need a cell tower down there or something?
Yeah, we're getting there, I hope.
I have nothing for you, Megan, other than welcome back.
Thanks. It's been a while.
So related to the meetings next week is a little bit different schedule. I have scheduled an agenda setting for Monday, the 26th. That's what Megan stated. We will not be able to live stream, but we'll record it. We will be reviewing again the agenda for the 27th. And the reason for that is since the board meeting on the 27th is outside of your normal work hours, it has to be a special meeting. And that gave us the opportunity to have any comments or any suggestions or any changes to the agenda to have enough time and publish 24 hours in advance. That's the reason to have the agenda review setting on Monday at 9 in the morning. We also have an agenda setting on Tuesday the 27th. We may not have a specific agenda to review, but we will have items for you to discuss at that time as well.
Okay. Did you have anything?
No.
Nope. Did you have any questions about next week, next week's meeting for Commissioner Mincer? Okay. Or PIO?
No.
Anything new coming out with for Commissioner Mincer that he's working on?
I don't think that he is working on his next Thurston County Connection
Okay.
yet.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. That takes us to briefing, public hearing decisions pending.
There is none. The only decision pending that will bring to your attention is for next Tuesday morning, the 27th, and that will be the Conservation Futures Grant Award. And I will bring that item for your discussion on Tuesday, the 27th.
Okay.
That's the one we just got done talking about, right, with Art?
No, this is the Conservation Futures
Oh,
Grant.
okay, got it,
Yeah.
got it. This is going to take place on what day?
On the 27th, Tuesday, the 27th. I will bring this item
In the morning?
in the morning.
Okay.
And that will probably be the main item for discussion, as well as I have other items with that. So because we have only an hour, so I'll try to split those two meetings.
We only have an hour next Tuesday morning?
We have an hour on Monday, and we have an hour on Tuesday. And the reason is because
Correct.
next week, you start the whole week on budget deliberations.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's only 9:32, so we're going to keep on pressing through.
Can I ask one question on that?
Certainly, sir.
On that Conservation Futures funding towards one of those projects that were presented to us, you were going to find out what the deal was on the fifth project that was knocked off by the state making an acquisition. Have you got any more information on that?
We'll get the answer to your questions by next Tuesday. We're working on that.
Okay.
So pressing on with commissioner items, number one is the joint meeting with Lacey City Council.
On August 29th, which is next week, on Thursday, you have another joint meeting with the Lacey City Council. I've been working with Scott Spence, the city manager, on a couple of items for discussion. One is going to be the annexations. The next is going to be an update on the SWAC. But if you have any specific items that you'd like to discuss, please let me know. One of
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You asked if I had any
Yeah, go
specifics.
ahead.
On annexations, have we got something in the works that's about to happen, or just general annexation talk in general?
Well, one will be a general annexation topic, and where we'll be providing some feedback as to how the county and all the jurisdictions can have a consistent approach as to how annexation should occur in the county.
Okay.
So we have asked the Thurston Regional Planning Council to serve as the regional forum as to where those conversations should occur. So that conversation has begun. The initial conversation has started. But related to annexations and attached to your packet is a specific item that will be discussed. And this is the packet that you have. And you may remember this map of annexations, right? Where the Boundary Review Board agreed with the recommendation from the county. The proposed annexation by the city of Lacey should encompass a little more logical boundaries. So that's where we are. One of the items, and this is related on the Hawks Glen, on the blue part of it, just at least from my perspective, just came up after all the annexation conversation occurred. So attached to use a map where we have a pump system that takes stormwater and tide line via a pipe into a creek. So, and that is the intent. It was built back in 1999, and it was related to how we can alleviate some of the local flooding on the Hawks Glen area. So initial conversations with the city, obviously they were surprised, and at least from my point of view, I was surprised as well.
I was as well.
As to the existence of this particular system. And that is going to be a little bit of a conversation. I believe the city of Lacey's position will be for the county to continue to have maintain that pump within the annex area in perpetuity. I had initial conversations with the city manager, and I guess I gave my perspective as to how I'm going to be approaching this issue with the board, and this is what I'm planning to do right now. I believe when any particular annexation, city annex particular areas of the county, within the whole area, they take the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I think that perhaps will be the rules of engagement. Having taken this this pump in the county to continue to maintain in perpetuity this facility in the annex area of the city, I believe this sets the wrong precedent in the future, because future annexations in future jurisdictions can claim, pick and choose what they would like to annex and what they want the county to maintain in perpetuity. So this is the conversation. I just want to give you a heads up. I just gave you my perspective as to how you may consider this item. Perhaps maybe something in the middle that we may consider, and hopefully that will be a conversation that may happen with the city. Because I don't think is in this case is all or nothing. I think is a system that perhaps maybe a certain time in which the county can continue to maintain until the city comes up to speed as to how they are able to maintain that. The Director of Public Works is right here, Jennifer Walker, can give you additional perspective on this. She has provided Commissioner Hutchins with a little bit breakdown of some of the costs associated with maintaining this system. And again, the system is long, and it was built by the county. And the area of annexation includes the pump systems. That's what I call the head of the system, where it takes the water, uses pumps, and tie line to a property to a pipe, and puts it into a creek. Some of the concerns perhaps the city had is the risk, because they don't have this system doesn't have any water quality components to treat the water before it gets into the sound. The county made an initial assessment at that time when this system was built. And at that point, it was determined there was not a need to build a water quality treatment system, because the outfall gets into wetlands before it gets to the sound. And as you know, wetlands provide the adequate quality treatment before it gets into the sound. So I'm just giving you the larger perspective of the issue. This may be an issue the city will like to bring, and in fact, Commissioner Hutchins and myself are meeting with Mayor Ryder and Scott Spence just to finalize the agenda for next week's meeting, which I believe this topic is going to be part of that.
So I was surprised when I heard this, not shocked, but are you kidding me? Because I didn't know about it. Because again, it went back to 1999. And it's not sewage or wastewater, it's just runoff water,
Stormwater.
stormwater. And so I do appreciate Lacey's concern. And again, it's not left or right, right or wrong, up or down. There's going to be gray area in which to resolve this issue. I'm confident we will be able to resolve this issue. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm kind of concerned if it isn't like we're giving them a piece of junk. The place is, it's all been kept up with proper equipment. Maintenance is going right along on a regular basis, apparently. And what is the difference between this and a stop and go light that needs to be, a traffic light that needs to be maintained or something? What's the big, I'm trying to figure out what the concern is that Lacey has, that they'd think we'd want to be running around servicing things within the municipal boundaries of their jurisdiction. It doesn't even seem reasonable to me. But.
Well, if I take your comment and take it to a higher level, there's really not a difference, because there is equipment that needs to be maintained, equipment needs to be upgraded. In this case, we replaced all the system, pumps and electrical system in 2015.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good
Jennifer
morning.
Walker, Public Works Director. So the average cost to maintain this facility is about $3,500 annually. I can't speak specifically for the city of Lacey, but certainly I could look at it and say, okay, well, the pumps are within the proposed annexation area, and then the pipe is outside of that. But what I would say is that pipe is a transmission pipe, so no other water, it's not conveying any other water except for what's coming out of the pond and the storm water that's being collected. So as it travels along Stillicum and goes into, it's probably about 20 feet before it hits into McAllister Creek, it goes into a wetland, which is dispersed from there. So yeah, we would not build it now, but the pump and the electrical, like Romero said, was replaced in 2015. It is just a transmission line that pumps it all the way down into that wetland. So,
Why wouldn't we build it now, today?
well,
I know the answer, I think.
it would not meet compliance and the requirements that we have now, but it is serving its purpose and it is functioning properly. So it's working
Okay,
the way it's supposed to.
thank you.
How come we don't have roundabouts everywhere too, ahead of time? I mean, things change, right? Isn't that the whole process is changing? I just think.
We need more rumble strips.
I just find it hard to understand why they're complaining about this.
I don't think it's a complaint, is it? Or just a concern that needs to be addressed?
There's a concern in I don't want to, paraphrase some of the specific concerns. That's just what I know about their concerns. Perhaps they're going to verbalize to you what their concerns are in more detail at the meeting. But as far as I understand, the concern is that perhaps this is a tight line, as Jennifer explained. There's no other contributions within the line, and from their perspective, is the risk of water quality. As I stated, the water quality is addressed because it's dispersed via wetland before it's discharged into the creek, and that is an acceptable best management practice. Other than that, the maintenance of the equipment is I'm going to use your statement, like a traffic signal. It's just another piece of equipment any city will have to maintain after they annex in a specific area.
My comment is meant with respect, Commissioner, when I said it's not so much a complaint. When Lacey proposed the annexation, we didn't have a complaint, but we had a concern. Why not take all this other stuff to alleviate islands and such? Sure. So when they bring up, we have a double pump system, and we didn't know about it, then it's not a complaint. They have a concern. How are we going to address this? The maintenance, the ongoing costs, how long will it last? Who's going to care for it, and all that type of stuff. So I hope I didn't come across disrespectful to you, but it's not a complaint,
not
just
at
a
all.
concern.
I mean, in the past, they've been taking all the revenue and leaving all the problems. This board has decided that we want them to take the total package and not, I don't know, cherry pick, if you will, or whatever term you'd want to use.
And at least from my perspective, this is not a problem.
Well,
I guess functioning.
This is an equipment serves a purpose. There's really, it's not a problem. So just from my technical point of view, there is really not a problem. I will probably consider it to be a problem if the pumps are deficient, are failing, or if there's some systemic issues. But from my point of view, there's really not a problem.
okay, I mean, just because I'm not an engineer and you are, I'd like to have you dealing with this situation rather than this be brought up as some kind of a policy decision that we're going to make outside the normal course of normal activity, because I'm not the professional in this field. But I have every confidence that between you and Jennifer, you'll get this figured out. I don't even see it as an issue worth discussing, but I'm open, I guess.
No, I'm just giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Because the
Good
city
way.
of Lacey may bring this item before you
And we're discussing this with the mayor and Scott Span, city manager.
this Friday. Yeah.
This coming Friday.
The purpose of this meeting is just to finalize the agenda for next week, but this item may be part of that conversation.
Yeah.
This, the boundary review folks made some kind of a decision here.
Yeah, is
that
what you
agreed
s-
with our position, right?
What you see in here.
Yeah, okay. Are they thinking this is going to change that decision? Is that what they're doing? I'm just trying to figure out where they're going with this.
At least what I've heard is if this issue is not resolved, meaning the county maintains in perpetuity, and this is not directly from the city, that perhaps the city consider not to annex entirely the whole area. But, and I don't know if that will be the extent of their decision or not.
And that's, is part of the mushroom farm, and
Yep.
this is included in there? So that would be the height of the dam, if that's what they decided, I guess, but that'd be okay with us. So.
No, and those are I'm just bringing you some of the,
I just have the itch, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about
I know. It's not politically correct to say that, but I
And,
always go
and-
outside the limb.
yeah, and again, this is, I'm not expecting you to,
You don't want me there at the negotiating table, do you?
I'm just bringing this to your attention.
And for the record, the county is not against annexation,
No.
but it has to be sorted through so it's equitable.
Okay.
That's it. Anything further, Commissioner?
No, sir.
Good decision. Is that it, Romero?
Absolutely. That's all I have for you on that
Okay.
one.
Ooh, WASAC request. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yesterday, we received, at least
I'm
last
sorry.
week.
Jennifer,
Sorry.
I forgot to ask, did you have anything further to add, though? I didn't mean to negate you. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Romero.
Hard to follow that anyway.
It is.
So last week, we received a letter from WASAC, Washington State Association of Counties. And this is related to the Department of Natural Resources is going through the process of amending their habitat conservation plan related to the marble myrtleland. And through this process, the Department of Natural Resources has updated some of the data associated with this amendment to the HCP. WASAC has been coordinating with DNR, highlighting some of the concerns related to the economic impact, particularly related to counties that use this revenue on those taxing districts. And the DNR has been very open to some of the concerns as far as the letter states from the Washington State Association of Counties. And they conducted additional studies related to their amendment to the Habitat Conservation Plan for the marble myrtleland, which is an endangered species. Unfortunately, their analysis did not have a detailed analysis of the impact of any monetary value to the changes, and as a result, no economic impact on their analysis. So this request from WASAC is for the counties affected by this particular amendment of the HCP to contribute on a project of $100,000. They will get to the point of outline the economic impact related to the state forest transfer and the state forest transfer purchase trust lands. In that, the report will be shared with the Department of Natural Resources. The Department of Natural Resources has also is planning to contribute $20,000 towards the $100,000 effort. And as in the back side, you have a table where the Washington State Association of Counties has already split based on the number of acres that each county has. In this case, they are requesting Thurston County to contribute $6,000 towards this $100,000 financial effort. Anyways, I just want to bring this to your attention. I'm not planning, I'm not suggesting for you to make a thumbs up, a thumbs down. The only request that I have for you is whether you would like to bring this item as part of your budget discussions next week.
If we don't bring it, then there is no possibility of participating, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I think I'm open to discussing it and find out what they're looking for.
I'm very open to discussing it. I'm surprised there's only 18 counties represented by WASAC.
No, but no, all counties have
There's
their
a
forest
timber?
lands. Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm very open to discussing it, yes. I know you have answers and options and suggestions.
So the assistant county manager is here. She's going to be managing next week's budget discussion. So.
Yep. Okay.
I think we could absorb this $6,000 if we were to pay it this year.
Okay.
General fund.
Yeah, but just basic discussion now that we're going to have next week. Could it come out of conservation futures?
Yeah, why not?
That means not a no, but maybe, maybe.
I'll look at that. That's an interesting question since it's specifically for habitat, but I'll take a look. But it's most likely general fund.
Okay.
Well, I mean, either way, we can afford it.
Yeah, $6,000 we can do.
Yeah, let's discuss the budget next week.
Okay.
Commissioner items number 3, public testimony. Have you anything, Romero?
No, I have not received anything.
Okay.
Nothing is pending. Nothing new. Thank you. Nothing new. I think we have
Nothing
been
new.
very responsive to some of the public testimony that you have received, both orally and in writing. So verbally and in writing. So.
Now this opens the door for other commissioner items, and I'll turn to Commissioner Edwards.
Well, I've asked you just roughly where we're at with Washington State Fish and Wildlife on that.
Yeah, I'm
topic.
working with Josh
Okay.
to answer those questions for next week
And,
related to the conservation futures.
Just maybe one other question, and I don't know how this would fit, but apparently Washington State is going to have a primary election in March of next year. And I don't know how that works, if it's a declaration of party affiliation or something like that, or if it's just going out to the general public. But I was thinking about the following month, we're scheduled to have a election in April on a courthouse issue. Is there any chance we would save money by partnering in on this other deal? I'm just looking at it strictly as a budgetary issue. I don't know if the timing's right. I don't know if the law allows for it. Just asking that question. That's
What's the March?
the March is the primary election. In the
Presidential
presidential
Primary.
election.
Oh, it is, that's right.
So that's going to be a statewide race, and I'm just wondering if we can save a few dollars by upping it by 30 days, and that'll be up to the board, you know, if they want to do that. But and even if it's legal to do it, might not even be legal. I mean, especially if it's a party affiliated and you designate what party, then that's probably not going to work. I don't know that, but maybe these are questions that
The auditor
we
would
could
know
bring
that.
up with the auditor.
I'll follow up with Mary on this,
Just as a,
with the county
strictly a
auditor.
cost savings issue.
Yeah.
I'm guessing because
Oh, we can't hear you, but you have a mic right here. Please, thank you.
You're going to put on your other hat from coming from the auditor's office now, right? Is it?
Is it on mute?
Yeah, there it is. It's green.
I would expect that the auditor's office will let me know.
The top-
Battery's
the
dead.
top button. Right at the top, see this red?
It's off.
No, but it's flashing went back.
Thank you, Vicki. I believe that the auditor's office will let you know that the presidential primary is actually oriented towards each of the political parties, and there will be a declaration required. That's my understanding from what the auditor has shared with me. So that may play into
Yeah,
the
I-
ability to put
okay.
this on that ballot.
Good
I'll
question.
follow- I'll
Good question to
follow up.
ask, though.
Yeah, I'm spending a couple hours with Mary this Thursday, so I'll ask her.
All right, thank you. You're on a roll. Anything, other
Well,
issues? Go ahead.
I'm kind of curious. I had a good visit with U.S. Fish and Wildlife yesterday. And apparently you had a visit with U.S. Fish and Wildlife yesterday. Any conclusions or anything? I've kind of got a commitment that I thought was interesting that I would bring to the board, and that is that my concern has been that there was originally talk of allowing for a 4D exemption for, this was during negotiation with Ken Berg some years back when he was the Northwest Regional Director, in which it was implied, I don't know if it was how it was actually stated, I don't have the verbiage that goes along with it, but that this listing of the Mazama pocket gopher was not going to be a detrimental issue to municipalities, the Port of Olympia, the urban growth areas of those municipalities, school districts, schools in general, I don't think school districts, schools in general, and agriculture. But in the end, agriculture was the only thing that got the 4D rule exemption. And that was not a total exemption, that was just exemption on certain activities. I don't know, you could plow 12 inches but not 16 or whatever it was. That was the implied agreement with Ken Berg during that time. And I think everybody that was involved in those discussions, including the Chamber of Commerce, and I know Heather Burgess's law firm was involved representing those folks at that time, and the mayor from Yelm and some other business people were involved. Anyway, everybody agreed, you know, well, that's kind of the intent of the Growth Management Act. And so by not granting us the 4D exemption, it becomes contrary to the Growth Management Act, because if you really digest the Growth Management Act down to a short sentence, if you will, that encourage growth in the urban core and discourage growth in rural America. Basically, keep your growth where your services are. But because of this listing from the Endangered Species Act, we had individuals that were just as detrimentally affected by the listing, either in municipalities or in the urban growth area. And consequently, we ended up with small sections of property being split off for mitigation issues, but it really didn't do the species any good. You know, just set aside a half acre or an acre or whatever it was on these properties. And so during my discussion with the acting director of this region, I said we were concerned that, you know, during the review that we didn't get noticed and all that. And we covered all that topic. But he listened to my explanation of how it becomes detrimental to the intent of the Growth Management Act. And he said he would take that to his superiors because it isn't in his bailiwick to make those decisions, and see if there wasn't any chance that something could be done to address so that the Growth Management Act and the Endangered Species Act aren't in conflict there. That wouldn't do us any good about rural America, and it wouldn't do anything about not being able to move forward on our HCP, but at least it seemed to be a step in the right direction. I didn't get into this whole partnership thing that I feel has been lacking. I mean, I know we had to bring threat of legal action just to obtain some of the scientific information from U.S. Fish and Wildlife before we had submitted our HCP. So that's been almost 2 years ago that we had to take that action to get that scientific action, our material back from them. Never did get to the bottom of that. But I think we're headed in the right direction towards a partnership on that property down at, in the Rochester area. That was the 5th property that we were going to be considering for conservation futures expenditure, in which it looks like the state is in the middle of trying to buy that out from under us, if you will. The state had approached the federal government through U.S. Fish and Wildlife for funding to make that purchase. So U.S. Fish said, well, we don't want to get in the middle of this disagreement of how this is going to proceed, but he just wanted to let me know that they've been contacted. So all in all, I think I had a good meeting.
Good.
And I think we're trying to move forward to get a solution.
Oh, wait, are you done?
Yep, good.
I also had I think it was a very good meeting with the acting regional director, Brad Thompson, and I wasn't going to bring it up because I haven't had a chance to brief or to chat with Romero about it or Josh. But I'll bring it up since you have, may I?
Yes.
Already, I'm going to guess this is highlighted to the,
I don't know that it is, but you,
oh, we got it tabbed.
that's an old one of mine.
Page 28. Oh, there, it's highlighted. Look at
Oh,
that.
well, that's something from some time back, though.
It is.
Yeah.
So when we chatted,
Commissioner, just for the viewing audience, can you describe the document you're reading?
I can. You want me to?
Yes, please.
Okay. This is from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, the Endangered Species Act of 1973, as amended through the 108th Congress. Dun, dun, dun. And we have been, as a county, been dealing with this issue since 2011. And so that goes back quite some time. And now we are to the point we are today, which is quite a bit further than we were in 2011, 8 years ago. Brad had heard, the acting regional director had heard the recipe analogy, and he says, he pointed out, here's the recipe, is these 5, in section 10 on page 28 of this booklet, you have to adhere to these 4 issues, that's the recipe. And I'm not going to get into the details now. He said, because we don't have to ensure, we as a county, that, or U.S. Fish, that we have recovery of a gopher. We just have to ensure that we're not paving them into extinction. And you brought up a gopher species in Pierce County that is now extinct. So he said...
Subspecies.
Subspecies, thank you. So he said it's not, they being the federal government, wouldn't give us a take permit in hopes of recovery, but in hopes of not rendering this subspecies or species to be extinct. And we did talk generally and philosophically regarding our HCP between the county and the fish, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and individual HCP plans. So people that are hanging in the balance, waiting for the county and the federal government to work through our HCP, individuals that want to proffer their own HCP plan with the Fish and Wildlife would still be able to move on and do so. And we talked specifically about Mr. Tibetan. But Fish and Wildlife, because I was trying to push, until we get this sorted out, do some individual HCP plans so people aren't economically suffering or damaged by this And he astutely pointed out that Mr. DeVetten hasn't submitted an HCP plan from which the federal government can work. There hasn't been one proffered yet or put forth. So we talked general and philosophically about where we're going to go and how to get this down the road and get it resolved. But it was a good meeting overall. And have you met with him in the recent week or so?
No, we just crossed paths yesterday while he was waiting to meet with you, and we agreed that we need to connect. Yeah.
But he was highly complimentary of Josh Cummings, the Director of Community Development and Community Planning, and you're working with Curtis. And he was highly complimentary of you and your staff as well. So, and I want to hook up with you sometime and chat about our chat. Okay, thank you. That's all I have on that issue.
I guess maybe I'd just add one thing that was a little bit disturbing to me was because we have submitted an HCP over a year ago for review. He said, once we finally get a document that they feel is acceptable, then it's going to take that document being placed on the Federal Register and being eligible for comment. But once it's placed on the Federal Register, it is probably at least a year out before approval, which is distressing, but if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Maybe we can't.
A year to 18 months is what I said. I heard.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't look like we're going to come to a very quick solution to this, no matter what we do. I do think we need to continue to look for mitigating property, even though we don't know what that's going to look like in the end, because properties that are available to sustain these prairie populations are getting fewer and fewer and smaller as time goes on. And so I think it behooves us, if we're going to do anything about protecting species, we need to make those purchases sooner than later.
And going back to what's highlighted in this booklet, when it comes to what's acceptable to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, it has to meet
that criteria.
Criteria. And so the issue was the 10% rule and the 30-60, 30-foot, 60-foot rule, without getting into too many specifics because it's just mired in detail. Those were the issues, and he just couldn't see it, but it's going to take a while. Yes, sir.
Related to Commissioner Edwards' comment as to be proactive to purchase potential mitigation properties, that is one of the agenda items that I have for you on your planning session that is scheduled for the September 27th.
A week from today, good.
And I'm going to really reserve most of the morning to have a conversation related to the conservation futures criteria for 2020. And along the way, I have asked Josh, the director of CPED, to have a conversation with the Public Works director. Public Works has a real estate office, and as to how we can probably start developing a plan that we can be proactive to look for properties and perhaps start being proactive in trying to purchase some of the properties that can serve as a mitigation in the future. That is a plan that we're going to be hopefully presented to you, to the board, on September 27th. So we're working on that because, as you know, we as a county, we cannot just jump on an opportunity. It's not possible. Because we cannot make an offer on a property without having a formal appraisal. And those are the difficulties of the government purchasing properties or any real estate. So through this process, hopefully we can develop a plan to be proactive, and that will be presented to you on the 27th.
All right.
Maybe just one quick thing on that topic. Brad did tell me that the Mazama Meadows property that is down, that process is being reviewed by legal folks of their office in Portland. And he did say that he had contacted those folks to see if they can't expedite that process so that we can end up with some mitigation process in place or ability in place so we could move forward like over at Marvin and Stillicum Road,
Yep.
where we want to do that expansion for the kids, where we're going to put, the school is right there, we're going to put sidewalks on both sides of the street and widen it, and that's all about safety for kids, and he recognizes that that doesn't look very good in the public eyes, that safety process for kids is being held up by this bureaucratic nightmare that we're dealing with. So I think he's serious about trying to get that fixed.
Yeah, I appreciate that because the Masala Meadows really is a good first step.
Yeah.
To give us some credits to proceed with some of the projects that we have in place, but also to learn the county how the mitigation credit process should work when we get to the point of implementing it countywide.
But that whole issue is all part and parcel of how there's conflict between the Growth Management Act and the Endangered Species Act, because I'm sure that wasn't the intent of the listing to put kids in jeopardy.
Brad Thompson also had a realistic perception, in my opinion, that if this goes all Thurston County way, which it won't, if it goes all U.S. Fish and Wildlife way, which it won't, or anywhere in between, it's all open to public scrutiny and public comment, and the attacks will come. Mm-hmm. From wherever they come from, they're going to come. So they're making sure everything's done according to law, and
rules.
as we will. But he said just stand by because it's going to come someday. It's going to come. Now, if Commissioner Menser were here, what would he ask? Do you have any questions for him? With a microphone. Thank you, Thomasina.
When can we expect the agenda for that planning session at the end of September? Is that something that you'll be distributing ahead of time?
Probably a week in advance.
Okay, great.
But
Thank you.
If there's any items, I'll engage the commissioners
Okay.
to see if you have any additional items.
Okay. A question he'll ask me, so just jumping ahead. That's all. Thank you.
Anything further, Romero?
Yes, I have a couple items for you.
I mean, on this issue, on this topic?
No.
Anything on this topic?
No.
Josh, anything on this topic? Okay, go ahead then, sir.
Commissioners, and this is related to the mental health facility that is been open in the city of Lacey, and I believe there's a second mental health facility is going to be built in
the hub area?
I can't remember where's the hospital has been built.
The one that's on Woodland Square?
Yeah, that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
or Loop?
So as a result of that, the mental health treatment is changing. It is moving into a more private way to provide those services. But at the end of the day, is we as a county are required to provide legal representation. That includes the courts, prosecuting attorney, Office of Public Defense, as well as the clerk's office. The BHO is you as serving on the board, is required to fund those services. But it's also associated with this is a little bit of tight deadlines as to how we can, the county can gear up to be ready to provide those services. You heard from Superior Court in a couple of updates. They have been working with this vendor just to make sure they have an adequate courtroom that can hold hearings at that facility, avoiding to transport individuals here to the courthouse. The transportation of those individuals can be traumatic, obviously, and they're trying to avoid to do that. So within the whole context of holding hearings on this facility requires resources and requires staffing levels. So Robin is going to walk you through as to some of the requirements that they will need to meet, some of the positions that perhaps you may consider creating. And again, all those positions come in with revenue because the BHO is required by law to fund those activities. But the question is the timing of it. And Robin is going to walk you through some of the hurdles and perhaps solutions for your consideration.
Okay.
So
Hang
it's my understanding
take
that
one
the
back
Hang on a
representatives.
second, Robin. Hang on.
Sure.
Do we get,
No, go ahead. I'm listening. I'm just walking this back to the back.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the representatives from the offices of the clerk, Superior Court, the prosecutor's office, and public defense took a tour of the new facility last week, I think on Thursday, and Tawny Sharp from the clerk's office immediately called me and came and sat and talked to me. Apparently, the new facility wants to begin conducting hearings mid-September. And the challenge is, as Romero said, staffing the hearings. So the page that I just sent around to you is part of the proposal for 2020. We knew this was coming. We were preparing for next year. What you see here is that the clerk is requesting 3 FTEs. The public defense is 1 FTE. The prosecutor is requesting 2 FTEs, and Superior Court is requesting 1.5 FTEs. The total annual cost is approximately $886,000, and it is completely covered by revenue from the BHO. The challenge now is that the facility wants to start conducting these meetings next month. And what Tawny described to me is the need to have that staffing in place. I've not yet talked to the other participants, but they're determining what they need this year. But what the clerk needs is the 3 FTEs and approval to hire immediately. It takes a certain amount of time, not only to find and hire these staff, but also to train them properly for court proceedings. And there's no way that they're going to hire 3 FTEs by mid-September. What I'm proposing to you is to authorize the FTEs at your public meeting next week, and that allows them to start the recruitment process. Then in the midterm adjustment, you would authorize funding not only for 2020, but also for 2019, this year, that would cover the costs of the clerk. The estimated cost is $130,000 this year. Until they're able to hire the staff, they would have overtime of their clerks to cover these proceedings. And again, public defense, the prosecutor, and Superior Court will also need funding this year. They just haven't yet told me exactly how much.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
The Superior Court, the prosecutor, and public defense. And then the one I heard from immediately was the clerk, because they have the greatest concern. And the entire group has expressed that the clerk's got this need to hire now. So the clerk is being supported by her peers. But the part of the budget process next week, I think I mentioned to you yesterday that all 4 of these offices will come forward as part of the budget process next week to discuss exactly what their needs are. But there is an urgency connected to these FTEs with the clerk that needs to be addressed.
I've got several questions.
I do too.
You want me to go or you want to go?
You go ahead if you want.
Number one, I'm glad they had a tour, and I don't know how, I'm hearing September, mid-September. They were going to start June, then it was going to be July, then it was going to be August, now it's going to be September, which could be September, or it could be October, we don't know, before it's ready, because the courtroom itself wasn't even.
It's ready now.
It's ready now. It's satisfactory.
It's acceptable to the court at this point in
Okay.
time. Yes.
So then, question, have we had this discussion with the BHO?
Mark was part of the tour, yes.
Okay, have we had this $886,000 discussion with the BHO?
This is a placeholder that was put in next year's budget. I believe that negotiations are close to being finalized with the BHO, but the state law is very clear that what it costs us, the BHO must pay.
No, I get
And
that. I just didn't know
this
if
is
we've had
the
chats with them or
estimated
not.
cost, and Mark is aware of these costs,
Okay,
yes.
and Mark's out this week.
My understanding.
On vacation, and then back next week.
And he has also, it's my understanding that he has committed to pay the costs this year as well as next year.
Okay. And so when I look at this, and again, you don't have complete costs or requests from these different departments.
For this year. These are their requests for next year.
So when I look at the clerk, I see 2 clerks and support. And when I look at the prosecutor, deputy prosecutor, superior court, a coordinator, and court security, it seems to me if the clerk is looking for 2 proceeding specialists and support, that the prosecutor will want support, the defense will want support, staff as well. But when I jump down to Superior Court, it says 1 Superior Court coordinator and a half-time court security. And I don't know where the hospital is on this, but the hospital has to provide security for their own facility. And I don't know why they wouldn't just supply the security for the courtroom.
So
It's their courtroom.
I would not be at all surprised that we have to provide security as well as everything else.
Probably, I just don't know.
It's my understanding that this group has met together and they all are very aware of what each other are asking for.
Okay.
So they already know it's a joint effort. And again, they're going to come in a group next week. Had we not been told that the hearings are going to start, and the facility already has, I think she said like 7 or 8 people are already there. And so they're on the brink of the certification. They've met the requirement.
They have, okay, good.
That's my understanding. So they're about to ramp up. It's also my understanding that the statement that was made that the vendor wants to work with us, but they've got to get this going. And again, the hearings are going to need to happen, whether in their facility or here in our courtrooms. So it's important that we start to staff up, and the clerk has the greatest immediate need.
I get that. May I do one follow-up before I get to you? And then there's a proposed facility on South Bay Road. That's an ITA. That's not, I don't think it's due to open for another year or so. I would think at least a year and a half. But they will be required to have a courtroom as well.
Yep.
And I'll keep an eye on, make sure that these folks have the capacity to handle both facilities and not additional.
I
but if there's
believe
not
that
additional
this
increase,
is
BHO has
mainly
to pay
just for
it.
the current. Let's see. It's my understanding that this will basically double the number of hearings that we're currently seeing. And another thing that Tawny shared with me is that the number of proceedings is growing. Without this facility, the number of hearings is growing, and they're taking longer to complete. So even before you get into new beds, the pressure of being able to cover the hearings today is exceeding the capacity that we currently have.
Okay.
So this will cover the new facility that we're looking at right now and the increasing burden of the current workload. As far as what's coming down the pipeline, you'll have to ask the group next week if this will cover that as well. But it's my understanding that this just gets us enough to cover what we need right now.
And I'll have to ask Josh where we are in that permitting process. It was in Environmental Health's hands a few months ago.
Right.
Commissioner Edwards.
boy, this is an upcoming problem for the county. And it's just another case, if we don't guide this through the process right, we are going to end up with a big unfunded mandate on our doorstep. This is coming about mainly having to do, the state lost over $50 million in federal funding because they weren't running the state hospitals correctly. And I believe they're closing those state hospitals down and shifting the responsibility to local government, not just
for the civil.
yeah, but and not just us though. This is going to go to other counties around the state as well. And I don't see that the $50 million loss they already got lost out of their federal assets coming in, and the state allocating money to move forward. What I want to do is remind the community and this board maybe that everything that we've been doing, we've been quite underfunded for many, many, many years. That has to do with the Growth Management Act and the failure of the legislature to come up with phase 2 of the Growth Management Act, which was going to be the funding mechanism put in place similar to what the county or the cities have. So my fear is, here we are, and I'm just going to use the park system as a comparison. The city of Lacey has 38 parks employees. We have 4. I'm afraid that as we're assessing what we can do to solve this problem, we're coming with that same mentality. What is the least we can do to get by to provide this service to these individuals and the needs of the court and the whole thing? Just like you're referring to, maybe the security could be picked up by the hospital. I'm going to change my point of view as far as I'm kind of a tightwad when it comes to wanting to make sure that we're not spending more money than we have to. But in this case, if we're not asking for enough money up front, I'm afraid we're going to get cut even before we get going. And then we're not going to have access when that place on South Bay opens up, or if it does, as others open up, because already we've got customers waiting in line, it sounds like, ready to go. It's not fair to those individuals that we keep holding them back from getting the help maybe they need. I don't know exactly what it's going to entail, but I can tell you that already we don't have room in our own courts to deal with this. That's why we're talking about doing a courthouse. And now we're being asked to come up with a solution to a monumental problem in this state. And I want to make sure that we ask for enough so that we don't end up with an unfunded mandate again. So I'm going to ask these participants if, did they take a look at this? Is this they're trying to get by with the least they can put in for? Because I think I want them to put in for twice as much as they're putting in for here. And the state, yes, is required to pay for this, but at least by doing that, we're going to have adequate resources possibly on hand as new facilities open up to deliver this service. We're never going to have the room in our own courts. So as we move forward with this as a budget request, if you will, from those individual entities that are involved, I see that coming at us as a piecemeal again. I'm going to ask my fellow board members that we combine that request into one presentation from all parties concerned, so they can all be here at the table telling us what the need is, and we can ask those very serious questions about, is that really going to be enough when this other facility opens up, or when this one you're talking about expands, when security is needed? Is it adequate? I don't think we should depend the hospital itself or the facility to provide security. I can tell you, I believe our Superior Court judges that are going to be conducting these hearings are going to want adequate security. And I think they feel they're getting adequate security from deputy sheriffs supplied by, possibly by the sheriff's office, versus a minimum wage employee at a hospital that is very, I'm not categorizing those individuals, but they just don't have the expertise.
And I'm not sure that's what the hospital has to hire,
Yeah.
a mental health facility.
So I want us to be thinking outside the box on this, into the future, and if we're going to move forward with this, I would like this board to go along with my recommendation, at least to hear the presentation all at one time, rather than piecemeal from different ones, so that each one of these individuals can play off of the other about, well, if I need this, well, then we're going to need two over here to do this.
Bidding war.
And what about transport? And all the other things, so that we're not diminishing our ability to provide the service we're servicing today to our community with our population that we're set to deal with already, with this new compounding problem that's coming up. So to me, this is not adequate.
So that's exactly what I've set up as part of your budget review next week. There's a time on Wednesday afternoon. We've invited Judge Schaller, Pam Hartman-Beyer, Scott Cushing, Christy Peters, Linda Enslow, Patrick, Tawny, of course. So the whole group will be here on Wednesday afternoon to talk to you about this upcoming need and what their request is. I'm not at all opposed to increasing this request so that it is not only bare bones but adequate to meet our needs. We do need to balance that. They are negotiating with the BHO for payment, and the BHO funding is being drastically reduced next year.
Yep.
So it's a balancing act, and if you're willing to pay additional money out of our general fund for no reimbursement, it's an unfunded mandate in that case.
No, I'm not willing to do
Well,
that.
then we're going to have to balance how much we request with what the
Well,
state is willing to pay.
I think we need to maximize our requests, so
I
we're not
agree.
asking for bare bones. We're asking for adequacy, so that we've got 38 parks employees instead of 4 parks employees.
Right.
That's what we're up against, whether it's deputy sheriffs. Municipal jurisdictions have 3 times the number of officers per 1,000 population served than our sheriff has. And I want to get away from that. I want to get back to reality. We can't just keep getting by, because when you're just trying to get by, people get hurt and we have mistakes made. And so I want to put the onus back on the state to cover their responsibility. And if that means asking for $3 million right up front, I'm not willing to start off negotiating at the bottom end of the need. And then we end up with only half of what we need. I want to start where the need really is, and I want to stick to it. I'm not willing to compromise on this.
But we're not negotiating with the state.
Well,
with the
eventually
BHO,
it is the state.
who is an
because
arm of the state.
It's the
BHO.
state, it's the state money.
And it's being drastically, as you pointed out, it's
Drastic.
being reduced considerably.
That is the
So
last
it's their capacity,
presentation I
and it's
saw.
our capacity. And I agree with you philosophically, but we can't absorb another $1 million out of our budget
No, we
for
can't.
this. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it from the state.
I think it might take, if we might, at some point, and I would like to discuss this with the other county officials at the statewide meeting of counties that are addressing this type of an issue, because it's not just us that is dealing with this. And if we have to have a class action lawsuit against the state to force them so we're not stuck with unfunded mandates, that's what I'm probably going to advocating for, because we can't keep getting dumped on by the state and expect it to come out of a fund that we don't have any money in.
Right.
And
So-
just a point of clarification, this is not an unfunded mandate, it's an underfunded mandate.
It's almost,
Well,
yeah, almost
but
as good.
They are basically one and the same.
Budgeteer's point of view.
If you don't have any tires on your vehicle, because they didn't buy you tires, that vehicle is no good.
We'll give you 3 wheels, but not 4.
So thank you. This is a great discussion. Again, I'm bringing this group forward on Wednesday afternoon next week for you to talk about the level of funding, but the clerk's needed is immediate for the FTEs. So what I'm requesting on their behalf is that we put the 3 clerk FTEs on the agenda next Tuesday to establish them. That way they can start to recruit right away, and then approve the funding in the midterm for both next year and the costs that will be incurred this year, which is quite a bit less than the amount for a full year.
Do we have to do this under like an emergency type resolution? That's typically not what we do, is it?
No. What we would do is have HR, I'd already asked that the clerk work with HR to add to your Tuesday agenda
Okay.
for next week, the 3 FTEs.
All right,
It will be in the consent agenda.
okay, go ahead.
Okay?
Well, let me just,
Okay.
it'll be on the consent, but I want to be sure that Commissioner Mensah has plenty of time to discuss it and chew it up as well.
And that's the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with the board today, because I'm planning to bring the agenda for the 27th for review again on Monday morning.
Okay, good, thank you.
So at that point, Commissioner Mensah will be part of that discussion.
Perfect, thank you. Go ahead, Gary.
And your recommendation that they come forward with, from the clerk's office, for an example.
Yes.
I want everybody to put in on that same request, because every one of these entities are going to have the same kind of hiring problems. I think we need to put in now, and we have to preface that on the condition of adequate funding being available, but at least put the mechanism in place to let these people, not just the clerk's office, but everybody involved, to start that recruitment process, because what you're talking about doesn't happen overnight.
Yes, I agree. So the clerk has come forward and talked to me and expressed this immediate need. If I can get the information from the other 3, I will definitely bring it forward as well.
Well, I don't want to piecemeal this. I want it to be done out in public in all at one time, so the public can see. Oftentimes, the government is kind of divide and conquer, the state government.
7
And that's how
FTEs.
we've ended up with these underfunded mandates.
So here's what we can do. You see that as a group, they're going to be requesting 7.5 FTEs. We can just set up all 7.5 of them next week.
Yes.
I'll bring those items. We'll include those items.
Well, okay.
The only office asking for 1 employee only is a public defender. And I think he's doing that to fall on his sword and be a compliant player. He'll need more than 1.
Well,
defense.
I think he has gone through
check
the
with
process
him.
of determining the needs. So with all due respect, I don't think Patrick will be in the position to fall in the sword. I think he's responsible to provide services, and this is his request. This is his request.
I thought he would need like 1.5 defenders because of the increase in need and load. Because you can't have, we need more prosecutors and still depend on just 1 additional defense lawyer. The defense has to defend every one of these
I think
cases.
those things have to match.
But,
Yeah.
but remember, Patrick O'Connor also has panel attorneys
Yep.
as an avenue to respond to the workload.
That costs more.
What others don't have that. So he has gone through the process of determining what the effect of this new workload is. So, and that's really his request.
I don't know, will you just promise me to have just a revisit the conversation after this discussion with him?
We could certainly, yes, absolutely. I'll
change.
reach out to him. But at a minimum, we'll put these 7.5 FTEs on your agenda to get established next week, with the understanding that they'll be funded in the midterm.
Okay, go ahead.
My concern is that you're asking for the minimum to get by. And I don't want to ask for the minimum to get by. If we continue on in that vein of just getting by we're never going to get out of this hole. So I don't know what the answer is, but if they're looking for 7.5, I want 15. Right off the bat, put it on there, condition it with if we get the adequate funding to make it work, because we can't keep just accepting the bare minimum. It's not going to work. We can't keep it up.
So positions that are created by the board needs to come with some sort of revenue. And if the BHO doesn't have the ability to cover 15 positions, let's use just a number, 15 positions, they're in the position to cover only 7.5, then puts the burden on the general fund to
No, I'm not going to go to the general. I will not vote to authorize general funding.
I know that that's not your intent, but creating the positions, we need to create also revenue that goes with those positions. And I understand the principle that you're stating, but this is more of operational steps that we need to take.
I'm conditioning it on funding being available from the state. You can call it BHO funding, whatever you want, but it's through the state that this funding is coming. And I don't want to let them off the hook. By God, they've put the screws to us for so long. We have to do something. We have to put our foot down and take a stand. We're never going to get ahead of this if we don't take a stand and say enough is enough. And I believe the other counties will agree with us.
However, when it comes to the state saying we're not giving you any more, enough is enough for us, then we have to absorb that cost.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we do. We just don't. We
She's
end
always
up not
started.
providing the service. Load those people up and take them to the governor's mansion.
But you have created positions, and that's the
We don't have
approach.
to fill those positions until we get revenue.
But still, you have to assign a certain dollar amount to cover that. Even if we don't fill those positions, there has to be a budgetary line item to cover the cost of those positions.
You're committing
even
dollars.
if they remain vacant. That is the operational question that we have. I don't disagree with the perspective. I'm just trying to struggle how from the operational point of view, we can address that need. Because if the BHO only covers 7.5 positions, if you create 15, then we have to come up with the revenue to cover the additional 7.5.
Well, whether there's money or not in the BHO, I think we've got a majority of the board members on the BHO. Maybe they'll agree to fund the money and take it from somewhere else. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I'm done playing Mickey Mouse with the state in their attitude towards us being a red-haired stepchild all the time.
Well, the BHO will do it in a responsible legal fashion, fiscally responsible. My question is, if we hire 7.5, or we hire 8, or we hire 10, next, do we have enough chairs, enough desks, enough computers, enough phones, enough parking stalls for these folks to...
I asked where we're going to
where we're
put
gonna put
these
'em.
people. That is an excellent question. We're going to have to address that question. Right now, we just know we need people to be able to show up and conduct the hearings, but we're working on the rest.
It all costs money.
It does.
I'd like to look into a class action lawsuit against the state. They're dumping on the counties again. The problem is you can't proceed with that until you can show damages. And that's going to be soon enough if we don't watch it.
I believe WASAC is in the process of doing that related to unfunded mandates.
Public
Yes, but
defense
not
in
this
particular.
specifically.
Public defense in
Yeah.
particular, I believe. So, here's what I'm going to do.
What are you going to do, Robin?
I'm going to have 7.5 FTEs on your agenda next Tuesday evening. We'll bring this group forward on Wednesday for you to talk about, is there a greater need? And if there is, we can always adjust the numbers.
Okay.
Okay?
That ensures a conversation with Patrick.
Yes.
That makes me happy.
I absolutely will make sure
you.
that we talk to Patrick.
Everyone needs more than one body but him, and I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm at on this, but I am not likely to vote for a budget that is going to take more money out of our current expense to fund the state's activities. So I'm just, maybe I won't be in the majority, but I'm not likely to vote for something like
At
that.
this amount, the BHO is committed to,
Well,
to paying. I think
they
if
better
we
get out
add
the
a lot
checkbook to
more,
be-
then we're gonna be challenged.
Well, we better be asking for an amount more than bare bones.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ramiro.
With that, is there anything further? Oh, here we go. Is there, hang on.
No, I
We have
think
not taken a break yet. Do we need a break? Need a break? No? Okay. Okay, we're pressing on then. Go ahead.
That's all I have for you, commissioners.
Oh, that's it? I thought you had more. We're done?
We can be done.
We're done. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope it was fun for you too.